and welcome back to my channel. So I know that a lot of you guys following me here on YouTube are interested in Japanese or at the moment studying Japanese, and so today I want to talk about how you can study Japanese through reading books, or specifically reading comics. And for that, I have brought a comic book that I really want to recommend to anyone who's coming to Japan or is currently living in Japan. So what I have today is a little comic book that you can get from 7-Eleven in Japan. It's actually free, and you can find it usually in the corner. It's usually around the coffee machine or somewhere in the corner of 7-Eleven. There is a little rack with free magazines you can find, usually for job applications. And there you can usually find this, which is called Bonorong. This is just a little kids cartoon that they give out every month. And the reason why I know about this is because when I was a high school exchange student, my host dad, he would bring this home every month to me from 7-Eleven to just so I could use that for studying. So when I was in Kumamoto in 2014 and 15, I actually used these for studying myself. So that's why I kind of want to talk about this topic based on these. And yeah, if you're in Japan or if you're coming to Japan soon, make sure to go into your local 7-Eleven and try to find these. It's a great resource because they're free and they're pretty easy to understand as well. Now, how much you can read and understand kanjis and hiragana and katakana, of course, depends on your level of Japanese. If you've studied for a while and are kind of used to reading, it's probably not that hard. But if you're just starting out, it might be a challenge for you. The great thing with kids books and comics made for kids is that for all the kanjis, they will write something called furigana, which means that they write hiragana at the side of the kanji, so you always know how to read and pronounce the kanji. Of course, if you're a little more advanced, you could always get a proper book. I'm reading Harry Potter at the moment. I'm reading it. I've had this book for a really long time, but I'm not a big reader, so I read a few pages a month or something, but a normal Japanese novel would look like this, and you can see there's quite a lot of text. This is still quite easy because it's made for kids. But yeah, today I want to talk about something that's even easy for beginners or people who are not super used to studying Japanese yet. So to show you what this looks like inside, it's obviously made for kids, so there isn't a lot of text on each page, and the pictures are pretty big, as you can see. And if you look closer, you can see that for all the kanjis, they have, as you can see, for all the kanjis, they have furigana as well, so it's really easy to understand. And the way I use comic books or texts in general for studying Japanese is I study kanji, I study vocabulary, and in some cases I also study grammar. So obviously when you look at the text, the easiest thing to learn from this is vocabulary, since you can just look up the words and make word lists. But if there is some grammar that you don't understand, some kind of verb form that you never heard before or something, you can always type that into Google, and there will probably be some English guide or explanation for that grammar. So this is actually great for not only vocabulary but also for learning grammar as well. Another tip when you're using text to study Japanese is to read the sentences out loud while you're reading. This will improve your reading speed and your pronunciation. And it's just generally good for getting into the flow of reading. And yeah, I think compared to just reading it silently, reading it out loud helps you remember the words more, helps you understand the sentence structure more, and it's just generally more effective when studying. And one thing that's really nice about Japanese is that the pronunciation is pretty simple. I've studied French before, and I know the same thing for English and Swedish. Sometimes the words are not pronounced as they are read or as they look like they would be pronounced. But in Japanese, it's pretty straightforward, so you don't have to worry too much about not pronouncing the words correctly when you're reading them out loud. So I actually made some notes for you guys just so you can see how I would use this book for studying. And yeah, so let's take a look at my notes. Okay, so when I was in high school in Kumamoto and I used these books for studying, I would always break it up to vocabulary and then the whole sentence. So first, I would start to translate all the words, vocabulary words that I didn't know in like per sentence, and then I would write out the whole sentence and translate the whole sentence one together. Because I've noticed that sometimes when you translate all the vocabulary, they make complete sense. But when you try to translate the whole sentence into English or your own language, the sentence doesn't really make sense or you don't really understand all the grammar. So I make sure to first translate all of the words so I understand what they actually mean in the sentence. And then if there's any grammar that I don't understand, I usually look that up as well. And then I try to translate the whole sentence into English. And one thing I want to point out is that I usually translate the sentence. I don't translate it to make sense in English or Swedish. I translate it to like understand what the words say in Japanese. So sometimes, in English or Swedish or different languages, like you might be using the same words, but it doesn't sound natural in English, even if it does in Japanese. I think you know what I mean. So sometimes when you translate a sentence like very literally from Japanese, it sounds a bit weird in English, but I think that's okay because you want to know the meaning of the Japanese words. Another way to do it is you could, change the word a little bit when you translate it to make it sound more logical in English. Like for example here, it says ki ga arimashita. So it says there was a big tree. But in English, on the bank of a quiet lake stood a big tree would make more sense or sound more natural. And here it says was, so that's why I translated it to was. I could write the word stood instead, but that would kind of destroy the purpose, in my opinion, of translating the actual sentence in Japanese. Yeah, so as you can see, I started with this word, mukashi mukashi, which means once upon a time. And then I continue to the second sentence, which you can see is pretty easy. And as you can see here, they have hiragana over the kanji. So I would always write the kanji and then write the pronunciation. And if I wanted to practice the kanji, I would do that in a separate notebook. So this is not necessarily for learning the kanji, it's just writing down and noting down the kanji. And then I would write the English translation as well. And as you can see, the same thing here. I found a kanji here, kyoboku. So I wrote the kanji and then I wrote the pronunciation or the hiragana and then the meaning. And then when I write out the whole sentence, I always write out the kanji because you want to get as much practice as you can. And then I continue to do the same thing with the second sentence. Just wrote out some of the kanjis. And if you have the same kanji appearing twice, you can choose if you want to write it down again for practice or if you don't want to do that because you already have it written down somewhere else. So I just wrote down all of the vocabulary again, and then I wrote down the whole sentence and translated the whole sentence to English. And then I would repeat this process throughout the whole book, maybe do 1 or 2 pages per day or something, depending on how much I wanted to study. So as you can see, even for such a small comic with not that many pages and not that many words, you can get quite a lot of studying out from that. And since you can get these for free in 7-Eleven, imagine how much you can learn without actually having to pay any money for it. 100% recommend. Yeah, so as you can see, it's not that hard to use books or texts to study Japanese. And one thing I do want to say is I recommend getting books with longer sentences rather than using manga, which is usually just people talking. I think it's easier to learn grammar and just learn how to read in Japanese better if you're using a book with proper text rather than a manga. That's just my personal opinion. And yeah, I think this way of studying works well for these kind of short comic books, longer books like Harry Potter that I showed you to, and it depends on your level and what kind of studying, what you want to get out of your studying. Right now, when I read longer books, not just this one, but other books in Japanese as well, I usually don't stop and look up words that much because I want to read for enjoyment and usually not for studying. But if you purposely want to use the Japanese text for studying, it's really fun and you can get a lot of vocabulary. You can learn a lot of vocabulary and grammar and words that you just didn't know before. Yeah, I hope you found this video helpful and that this is the kind of content that you want to see on my channel. I do want to keep on sharing ways that I'm learning Japanese and that I've learned Japanese, and kind of make smaller and more detailed videos about different things that I'm using here in Japan, and maybe online resources as well. So let me know in the comments what kind of videos you want to see on this topic, learning Japanese. I'm not planning on making videos like actually teaching Japanese, but I would love to make more videos talking about how I've studied Japanese and maybe some techniques I learned in my language school, tips for studying and preparing for the JLPT exams and stuff like that. So yeah, just let me know so I know what kind of videos you guys want to see. But yeah, I hope you're all doing well. I'm actually getting ready soon, or I actually have to get ready soon for my online classes. I think they're starting in like 40 minutes or something. And yeah, my life is pretty nice right now. The weather is amazing, and I actually have a new little project. I'm going to start, or I have started to watch Japanese movies. Because I've never really gotten into Japanese movies, and I don't know that much about like Japanese movie culture and different directors, and I figure since I'm studying media and I plan to work in the media industry in Japan, I should probably know more about Japanese movies and directors. And I just want to be able to, you know, if people are talking about a specific movie, I want to be able to join that conversation and add something to that. So I've asked a lot of my Japanese friends for their advice and tips on different movies, and I've made a list on my phone, so I'm gonna start to work through them from now and for, I guess, however long it takes for me to watch them. Yeah, so hopefully I will be able to give you guys some good movie recommendations as well later on. Just give me some time to watch them first. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in and watching today's video, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!